coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in love.
Yes, guys, it's G and we are back in the building. Guys, please make sure before we even start, today I'm gonna do a 2022 Liverpool wrap up or roundup, whatever you want to kind of call it. Yeah, just wrap up of the 2022 calendar, everything we've kind of been through in regards to obviously last season, so the ending of last season, the ending of the 21-22 campaign, everything that kind of happened there, and then leading on to the summer, and then obviously leading on to the first half of this season. So before we even dive into that, before we have some fun, it might get emotional, but before we even get into that, guys, please make sure that you are liking, please make sure you are subscribing to the channel on the road to 150 subscribers. So just quickly before we even dive in, I know a couple people have told me in regards to the visuals and stuff like that. I've just had an issue over the Christmas period with my laptop, so whilst I'm getting that fixed, I will be using my mobile phone, but I will be back on the laptop in the next couple of weeks, if not before that. So don't worry, obviously the visuals and everything will be back and will be ready. But obviously we're looking at 2022. So obviously, as we know, back in the last season, Liverpool were fighting for the quadruple. Fans were excited. You know, everything seemed to be going kind of good, I guess. You know, title race with Manchester City, took it to the last day. Obviously, we lost out by a point as per usual. Seems like that's the theme under Jurgen Klopp's time here, unfortunately, you know, that's not all his fault, but that happens to be the theme obviously here. And then obviously we faced Real Madrid yet again in the Champions League final, lost that out 1-0. Yeah, that was a weird game. But we'll get into that. Obviously we won the League Cup, obviously we won the FA Cup, so we did get a domestic cup double last season, which depending on which way you look at it, to be honest with you, you know, some people look at it and think, you know, that was, you know, that's a good season. Some people look at it and kind of think, you know, it was I wouldn't say failure. You can't say winning a trophy is a failure. That would be a lie. But it was one of those ones where you go in for the two big trophies and you come out with the two small ones, you know. So, you know, there is something to be said in that. And then obviously the summer holidays and everything that kind of happened there. So we'll start with the League Cup. Obviously Liverpool winning that on penalties. You know, that was, I felt like when it comes to like the League Cup, for me personally, the way I look at like cups and stuff like this, FA or the League Cup, to be honest with you, any domestic cup, I always think to myself, these are the kind of trophies that, you know, it's all about context when it comes to these kind of trophies. It's all about the context. It's all about, you know, who are you as a team? What are you trying to achieve as a team? You know, where are you trying to go and all these kind of things? Are you a team, for example, like a Tottenham? I don't want to drag Tottenham, you know, into this, but are you a team like Tottenham, a team who haven't won a trophy in a very, very long time? So when you go into these domestic cup competitions, you know, every season, you are looking to gain that trophy because, you know, it will just help. It will just help, you know, it builds something around the club. It gives the club a bit of energy. It gives the club that feeling of being able to win a trophy, you know, something you just haven't won in a long time, you know, so it allows for the club to kind of get in the mood and understanding what it's like to be in an intense final, because you know how these finals go, and then moving forward with that, however, you know, however that kind of happens. So are you one of those clubs, or are you like a Manchester City? You know, I feel like they treat this kind of competition, they treat it seriously. That's definitely one thing I will say. They, over the years, they have treated it seriously. They have won it quite a fair few times, you know, let's say in the last 5 seasons. And I think that when you've got a team like Manchester City who are going into, you know, into these kind of competitions, they're using this kind of competition to just, it's almost like you're adding more fuel to the fire. You know, you're a team who every single season consistently are always going for the title. Every single season, you are trying to battle to get that Champions League, and you're trying to gain as many trophies to get that winning feeling in and around the club, to allow the club, again, same just like a Tottenham, you are trying to move the club forward, but the way that you're going about it is that this is about the collection as opposed to the individuality of that said trophy, i.e., the League Cup. And, a team like Liverpool last season, the way that they were heading, is that they were trying to use the League Cup as, okay, we haven't won the League Cup in a little while, which obviously you want to then win. It's a trophy that Jurgen Klopp hasn't won. So it's a trophy that the team as a collective haven't won together. So, let's try and push the boat out a little bit. And also, again, Liverpool, they are a cup team, so they are used to winning cup competitions. But when you haven't won one specific cup competition for quite a long time, I wouldn't say it plays on your mind because it's only the League Cup, but again, you are using that almost in the Manchester City mode where you're trying to add this to the collection. You are then trying to almost dominate and show that kind of dominating factor of, okay, we are a team who are going to every competition. We're trying to win every single competition, and we're going to try and make sure that, we do our utmost best to win every single, competition. But, Liverpool ended up getting the victory on penalties. And then obviously, we had the title race, which went down to the wire again last day, for a glimmer. There was a glimmer of hope. And for maybe I think it was 10 minutes. I can't remember. I can't quite remember how long Manchester City were behind for. But for like around 10 minutes, everyone sat there and thought, oh no, Liverpool might actually do this here. The last day, they were beating Wolves, I believe. And, Manchester City were losing against Aston Villa, Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa, coincidentally enough. And we all know how it panned out. Manchester City, as I expected them to do, they came back into the game. They ended up winning the game. And then going on to lift the Premier League. And I felt like last season, I've said this many times. I think me personally, just my own personal opinion, watching Liverpool for the last, 25 years, I think, especially in these last 7 years, outside maybe of a couple, maybe a few individual seasons. So we're looking at, the season with Gerrard and Torres, where we came second behind Manchester United. Maybe the 13-14 season, that was more exciting than anything. But, the 18-19 and 19-20 seasons, I felt like that's the best, probably one of the best campaigns that I've seen of a Liverpool football team. I felt like the team were in this space where, we were just, people were scared to face us, and, they were scared to come up against some of our players and stuff like that. And I felt like last season, I wouldn't say that we was heading in that kind of direction in terms of the performances. I felt like the performances were not good in comparison to those previous years. But what we started to get into, which was really, really good, was just the mentality of going again and again and again. Just, it doesn't matter. Cool, you won today, we move on. We're not even bothered about today's victory. We've already, that's already gone now. The 90 minutes is done. We'll go away, look at all the things that maybe we haven't done, so perfectly, but then we just keep on moving. And I felt like Liverpool were getting into that kind of rhythm, last season. But again, like I said, the performances weren't really good, but when you've got that mentality, it can go a long way. It can really, really go a long way, and it can push you through those kind of games. And I felt like that's what we were doing last season. And then we were able to, get ourselves, within a whisker away of winning the Premier League. And then, the FA Cup, again, on penalties. I really, really liked the semi-final leading up to that against Manchester City. I think we won 3-2. I felt like that was a really, really good game. That was a game where I looked at it and I thought, two teams battling it hard, that season especially. And Manchester City, I think at that time, were also going for, I think maybe they were going for the treble. Yeah, because obviously they would have been out of the League Cup. So they were going for the League, FA Cup and Champions League. I think they were still in it at that time. So again, two teams battling hard, and obviously Liverpool coming out on top, and then Liverpool coming out on top in the final. So again, picking up 2 trophies, it's always good. No matter what the 2 trophies are, ultimately picking up 2 trophies is obviously going to be something that, you're going to, be happy about, regardless of anything, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And we didn't know what was going to happen, obviously, in the league, Champions League and stuff like that. So to go out and win those 2 trophies, you know, it felt good. It did really feel good. And then obviously we get to, you know, the Champions League final, you know, and this was probably one of the first few times, other than, I guess, would I say the game against Tottenham in that Champions League final, would I say that Liverpool realistically went into the game and I wouldn't say they were favourites, but I think we went into the game a bit more optimistic, especially against Real Madrid. You know, that's our bogey team. You know, no matter which way you look at it, we seem to face them and it just all goes to absolute, you know, shits, to be honest with you. You know, so I felt like going into that game against Real Madrid, you know, we were confident. Well, I don't want to say favourite. I don't think we were favourites at that time because of what Real Madrid had actually done in the previous rounds. And they were just showing that why they are, you know, European royalty, why they are the #1 team in Europe when it comes to the Champions League, why they have the most, you know, Champions League. You know, we can't forget this is a Real Madrid team, you know, who still have a lot of the players who went back to back to back in that Champions League. You know, who does that? You know, who does that? So, you know, this is the kind of giant that Liverpool were coming up against. The game was the game. I'm not even going to analyze it, so to speak. I think quite a few people have done quite enough of that over the past few months. You know, we know what he was on. He was just on complete and utter demon time, but he's a good goalkeeper. So these are the kind of things that you just got to kind of expect, you know, as an overall performance. You know, Liverpool coming into the game, I think with Fabinho and Thiago not really, I think Thiago more so, who wasn't really fit and stuff like that. And we were rushing him back. You know, the team had played a lot of games, and I think that is like the theme when it comes to Jurgen Klopp. As we look at it, you know, it's now, I think, 3 Champions League finals that he's been to, 2 against Madrid, one against Tottenham, 4 European finals if you count the one against Sevilla that we lost out to as well. So 4 European finals and only 1 trophy to kind of show for it. You know, I don't know how you want to look at that, to be honest with you. I was very, very disappointed when we did lose that Champions League final, because I felt like this was a trophy that we really needed to, you know, go for. This is a trophy that we really needed to win to kind of keep us in the flow of things, you know. Haven't won the league again, you know, that's now coming off the back of 19-20. So that's what, 2021, 21, 22, that's 2 seasons, going on 3 obviously for this season as well. You know, you don't want to get, it's not a rut because it's only been a couple of seasons, and so that would be a silly thing to say and reactionary. But I think it's just more about, you don't want to start, you know, when 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4, and then so on and so forth. And I just felt like winning that Champions League, I felt like that was needed for Klopp especially as well, you know, to kind of also show that he is someone who can win these big trophies on on multiple occasions. You know, we know what Liverpool are like when it comes to one game. We know what Liverpool are like when it comes to that one time. You know, that's what we're known for, you know, as a football club. That one game, that one time, you know, that one moment, you know, everything seems to only happen once. You know, winning that Champions League, that's 2 Champions Leagues now that he's got, you know, whilst he's at Liverpool, as opposed to just the 1, you know. So it's these kind of small kind of margins that define your era, you know, and ultimately we'll find out what that's going to be once, you know, Jurgen Klopp leaves. But alas, we lost. You know, we lost that game. You know, heading into the summer, I think we had the open top bus parade and all these things, which I'm gonna say I didn't like, but I understood why Klopp wanted to do it, but I didn't necessarily agree with it. If I'm being totally honest with you, I didn't think that was something that, you know, I just didn't think that was something that the team kind of needed, you know, realistically at that point. For me, when you've lost out in the 2 major competitions, for me, I need you to go back into the drawing board. I understand you want to celebrate, you know, with the fans and all these kind of things, but, you know, we're not a small club. You know, the FA Cup and League Cup isn't something that, unless it's coupled with, you know, a Premier League or a Champions League, again, you know, those are the kind of things where we say, we're going again. You know, that season, not to say it wasn't good enough, but, you know, we ultimately failed in our, you know, in our objectives of winning the 2 major, one of the 2 major competitions. So unfortunately, this is kind of, here's the kind of, you know, trophy for winning, you know, the other kind of stuff, but, you know, we're aiming for bigger and better things. You know, couldn't care less about the FA. I wouldn't mind if we went another 50 years without winning the FA Cup, or another 50 years without winning the League Cup, if it meant that in that 50-year time period, you know, we won a bucket loads of Premier Leagues and a bucket loads of Champions Leagues. I'm sure everyone would feel the same way. You know, you wouldn't care about those competitions. And I felt like that was kind of the mentality that we needed. You know, the team, you know, for me, it was, or it is, and it was becoming quite stale. We did need to kind of freshen it up. We've had the same kind of players for a very, very long time. This is the same group of players who have been together for ages. You know, all of these things just needed to kind of be changed up. And then that's where we move on, you know, to the summer. So we get to the summer now. Now, myself, you know, Jerry, Roms, you know, we spoke extensively through the summer holidays, and there's loads of other people as well. You know, loads of other people. You know, big up Ish, Sam, I could Saint. You know, there were so many different people who spoke about, you know, Liverpool's kind of issues and what we need to just kind of put us back at the top, but also put us back into a position whereby it's still keeping that, you know, the main two, and we're continuing to refresh the squad, because that's what you ultimately need to do. That's how you continue staying at the top first and foremost, and then moving on to then, you know, winning. We get to the summer, we let Sadio Mane go. We had the Mo Salah thing, you know, where will he sign, will he, won't he kind of thing. He ended up signing. We let Sadio Mane go, you know, one of the best players to, you know, play for Liverpool. He goes in the summer. We sign in, you know, Calvin Ramsey, we signed in Fabio Carvalho, and then obviously the big summer signing we get is Darwin Núñez. We let Origi go, we let Minamino go, we let, I think, Shaqiri go. You know, we let quite a few players, you know, go in that summer. And as I said, the big summer signing then being Darwin Núñez, you know, he was coming off a very, very good season for Benfica. Scored a bucket loads of goals. Lots of teams looking at him. I think it was only really us and Manchester United who were really the serious ones in that. And then, you know, we ended up signing him 64, 65, and then add-ons take it to, what is it, like over 85 or something million pounds. And, you know, we didn't address the midfield area. And then I think on the last day of the transfer window, Henderson gets injured in a game. What happens? We then get him, you know, after, you know, months and months of the, you know, fans screaming, we need a midfielder, you know, we need someone to come in and freshen things up. And I think that was something that, like I said, myself, Jerry and Roms, we had spoken about prior to the season even starting. But I think a lot of Liverpool fans didn't really look at it like that. I think last season kind of skewed quite a lot of people's perceptions, and a lot of people were looking at, you know, last season and thinking, oh, but, you know, if we want a quadruple, this should be the same group of players. And, you know, it was always a thing of, you know, you're always going to reach that kind of peak. Anything can look good, you know, when you're winning games and stuff like that. Of course, you know, it looks fantastic. You know, things look amazing. But sometimes, like I always say, sometimes you do need to look past that sometimes to be able to find what can get us, you've always got to be thinking, you know, how do we stay at the top? How do we maintain this? And I just felt like Liverpool, one thing I will say is that I felt like they were, as a club, very, very naive. Jurgen Klopp included, the owners definitely included, and the players, very, very naive in thinking that, you know, it was just a case of we could just go again with the same kind of players, doing the same kind of things without, you know, really changing too much. And again, you know, we're seeing that this season. Liverpool currently lying in 6th position, you know, at the moment, out of the Carabao Cup, and, you know, got Real Madrid in the next round of the Champions League. So, you know, we're looking at it, and yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So we can all turn around and say, oh yeah, but, you know, I knew this and this, that, and the third. But I do believe that quite a lot of Liverpool fans did look at the situation and maybe just didn't take it that seriously until it did get to the back end of the summer and a couple of games into the Premier League, and we're watching it and we're seeing the injury. I think the injuries was the key. I think that was when people really started to, you know, almost turn their heads and say, oh crap, you know, we do need to change it up now. You know, something does need to kind of change, because if it doesn't change, then, you know, we're going to be left behind and things like that. And, you know, I didn't want to wait to the injuries. And this is why I say Liverpool was naive, because I felt like that's exactly what Liverpool did, which is it was more about waiting until the injuries kicked in before they actually felt there was a need, without actually looking at the squad and realizing also as well, other clubs in and around us, they're all improving. You know, they're all refreshing their own squads for their own targets and their own goals. And we're not doing that. So ultimately, you are going to fall behind. You know, that's just the way of life. You know, if you don't refresh things and if you don't, you know, try to stay on top of certain things, of course, you're going to inevitably fall behind, you know, in certain aspects. So I felt like that was something that we definitely lacked on. That was definitely something that we needed to improve upon. Like I said, like many others, but we didn't do that. You know, we ended up getting Arthur Melo in, who's just turned out to be an injury-prone player, another one. And fans have been left frustrated. Fans have really, really been left frustrated, especially with the sheer fact that one thing I will say, as people already know, look, I get onto Darwin Núñez quite a lot. But that's because, you know, my expectancy level is quite high for Liverpool, ultimately. Whether that hurts his feelings or not is irrelevant. I couldn't really care less. That's not really my problem at the end of the day. He doesn't know who I am, ultimately, but really and truly, I don't really care about that. It's all about for Liverpool, what I personally believe is the best for Liverpool moving forward, whether that be with Darwin Núñez, fantastic. If it's not, I couldn't really care less. You know, thank you, goodbye, you know, you've done your job. But I think one thing I will say on Darwin Núñez is that, you know, he was coming in to kind of, I wouldn't say he was even coming in to replace a Mane. I think that's just how it's panned out this season, that he's just happened to take up that left-hand side slot. Obviously, Diaz being injured as well, and his performance is showing that he does operate quite well off that left. But also coming in as a big money signing, you know, this isn't a Haaland. You know, we know what, like, Haaland is the guy. Haaland is the one that we all wish we could have signed. You know, if we was all able to sign a Haaland, we would love to have a player like, you know, Erling Haaland. He's the best, one of the best finishers in world football. So of course you'd love to have him. He's not a Kylian Mbappe. He's not a Lewandowski. He's not a Benzema. You know, he's not players Aguero's. You know, he's not these guys at that top end of things. But you can see there is some level of potential. You know, there's something to work with him. But there was a lot on his shoulders, you know, which ultimately isn't his fault and is a little bit unfair on him, is that there is a lot on his shoulders because he came in as that big money signing. He did come in, you know, he scored a bucket load of goals for Benfica. So, of course, my expectancy level is thinking, okay, let's translate what your form for Benfica. Let's translate that here. And I think for me, when I watch like a Erling Haaland, for example, you know, one of my favourite strikers, you know, of this generation, of this era, at this current moment in time. When I watch Erling Haaland, there's a confidence thing with him. When you watch him, you're just confident. Whether he scores or not, that part is actually irrelevant. It's the sheer fact that you are so confident that he will score. You know, when he's one-on-one, you're confident that he's going to score. You put your house on it, you put your mortgage on it, you know, kind of thing. You know, and he's confident in what he does, you know, on the pitch. When I watch like a Darwin Núñez, I don't really see that with him. And I think that is why there is this negativity and stuff around him. You know, a lot of people have been saying, oh, you know, the goals will come. I don't look at it like, I don't think that's the case, to be honest with you, because I think it's more of a case of the Darwin Núñez that we've kind of got now. I feel like that's the Darwin Núñez. That's what he's going to be like ultimately moving forward. People like him, people like Salah, people who have mentioned Salah and said, oh, Salah used to miss a lot of chances. And, you know, Suarez, even though, you know, all three are completely different to each other. But if you take Salah, for example, I know Jerry's mentioned this before. You know, that like Darwin Núñez kind of reminds him of like a Salah in terms of like the missed chances and things like that. And I do get that. But what Salah actually improved upon wasn't his finishing. His finishing stayed the same. He still finishes the exact same way. Everything is the exact same. What changed was his consistency. That is what players need to get. That is what separates the best from the elite. Like, so from your, you know, Lionel Messi's and Cristiano Ronaldo's, you know, to everybody else, is because it's the consistency level of these players. We've seen so many different players who can do some of the things that a Ronaldo could do some of the, maybe not Messi, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of, you know, run a game and, you know, the dribbling and all these kind of things. We've seen these things before. We haven't seen it at this consistent level though. And that is the difference with players like that. Now, obviously, take out those two. I probably shouldn't have said those two, but take out those two. And even if you're just looking at the top players, you know, your R9s, you know, your Thierry Henrys, you know, people like that. The reason why we rate them so highly is because they were so consistent. Yes, they had bad games. Of course they did. I've seen Henry go through games where he's missed chances. And you think to yourself, oh, bloody hell, like, you know, since when does Henry miss chances? Since when does R9 miss chances? But they're only human. Everyone's going to miss these chances. Their consistency level, for them anyway, like Henry and R9, it was there from such a really young age. And then they've just kind of developed that into just, it's now a habit. So once that becomes a habit for them, that's it. It's game done. You know, it's one of those kind of things. And, you know, I think that is the difference between a Darwin Núñez, is that his consistency level, like he, as we know, he gets in the right positions. He causes chaos. He does this, he does that, all of these kind of things. Yes, he does all these things, but he's just not at that consistent level where we can say, is this someone who can do this on a consistent basis, i.e. score goals or get assists and things like that? At the moment, it's kind of all higgy with him, you know, and I think that's the reason, well, for me, that's my reason, but I think that's for quite a few other people as well, is when we do look at someone like a Darwin Núñez, it's just that consistency. If he can remain consistent for the next 18 months, for example, of course, his finishing's not going to get any better. The way he finishes now, it's not going to get better. He's just going to become more consistent at it. It's not about getting better. He finishes more than fine now. I've seen him finish. Do you get what I mean? So he's not a 14-year-old who's still kind of learning the game. This guy's 23 years old, you know. Yes, he's only been a professional for about a couple of seasons or 3 seasons or whatever it is, but he's 23 years old. He's been playing football for quite a long time. He knows the game. He's been playing professionally for 3 years. He knows the game, in that sense. It's just about the consistency levels. Can he translate that, you know, to that? And, you know, again, we'll wait and see. We will wait and see. But I think that's why there's so much pressure on him, and why if he has a bad game, it gets highlighted a lot more, as opposed to when he has a good game and things like that. And again, the perception of what some people believe is a good game in comparison to a bad game, of course, it's going to look different to certain people. To me, I don't care about the chaos. I'm looking at the consistency levels. Can you be consistent in whatever it is that you're doing? If you can do that, I'm good with the missed chances to a degree. Of course, you know, once it's, you know, it's already becoming a little bit worrying anyway, but if it continues, you know, it's now gone 3 games, I think, without scoring a goal. If that was to continue for another 3 games, for example, and it gets to 6, now I'm a bit like, I'm a little bit worried. The same way everyone gets worried when Mo Salah goes through that same thing. Soon as Mo Salah goes through a little bit of a slump, because he was our only consistent goal scorer, because no one else was consistent at scoring, it gets highlighted. Oh, is he dropping off? Is he declining? You know, that last 6 months of last season. Oh, you know, we want to put him on 300 and whatever grand a week. Oh, does he really deserve it? I heard that from everyone. All content creators, fans, everyone was saying the same thing. You know, oh, does he really deserve it? I expect more. All of these things, when the reality is, it's just that he was just going through a bad patch. As we've seen this season, I think he's got, 22 or 23 goals and assists. So clearly this is a guy who's still able to produce the consistency levels. Yes, he'll go through his bad periods, but that's what Darwin Núñez, obviously being young, we will, hopefully that then changes in the future, and then we'll see more of it. But it's an interesting one with Darwin Núñez, but, you know, we can't judge him too harshly just yet. You know, I would say wait until the end of the season, see what it's looking like come the end of the season, and then we can make a better judge, you know, on a Darwin Núñez. But, you know, Liverpool currently sitting 6th in the Premier League, you know, losses to Nottingham Forest, to Leeds, draws to Brighton, to Fulham, to Palace, you know, it's losses to Manchester United, to Arsenal. You know, it's not been a great season, to be honest with you. You know, I feel that outside of winning the Premier League and coming second, I feel like this season will personally, for me, be looked at as a failure, regardless of whether we make the top 4 or not. If we make the top 4, we made the top 4. You know, I feel like that should have been a given. You know, at the beginning of the season, I feel like we should have been moving in that kind of direction. Even a Manchester City, who haven't even really been that good this season, are still maintaining their position in the league. And I feel like that's the difference between, you know, us and them. Arsenal have obviously just shut up. Newcastle have just obviously shut up as well. So, you know, we're in a position now whereby we, first and foremost, the most important thing is obviously getting that top 4, because without it, we're not then able to, I feel, then attract the kind of players that we need to attract to be able to move us forward. And it kind of puts us back a peg, whilst also then boosting our competitors in and around us, who, like Newcastle, like an Arsenal, they start to become a lot more attractive over time, especially if Arsenal go to win the league, you know, this season. with the team that they've got there, a young, vibrant team, that's a team that if they win the league this season, God, you know, I think a lot of people should be worried. A lot of people should be worried because that's a young team. This isn't like Liverpool where everyone was kind of in their middle ages at that point, middle ages to pushing 30s and things like that. And, you know, we're building that team and then we finally win it and we win it when everyone's reaching the ending or at the end of their kind of peak kind of thing. Arsenal players are just reaching, you know, your Sakas, your Martinellis, you know, your Gabriel Jesus's, you know, your Salibas, Ramsdales, you know, people like this. These are all young guys. You know, they're looking to bring in some more young players to build. And this then could be a team that you're looking at and you're thinking, bloody hell, 5 years time, these guys are still only going to be entering into what we would perceive to be their prime. Your Sakas, your Martinellis, your Jesus's, your Smith Rowes, your Odegaards, who's a fantastic player. Like, they're only just entering into the 26, 27, 28 kind of thing. And then that's a 5-year period, you know, of them being that good. You know, again, like I said, just got to be a little bit worried if they were to go on to win the Premier League, which it's looking likely at this current moment in time. But, you know, Liverpool in the Premier League, not really that good. Been very disappointing. Champions League, done all right. Obviously, we qualified through to the next round, so that's always a good point. That's always a positive. Performances have been a little bit, you know, that Napoli game, that was embarrassing. That was probably one of the most embarrassing performances ever under Jurgen Klopp in his time here. And I think that, you know, the boys really did have to look at it and think to them, you know, and go back to the drawing board. And there was a lot to think about, you know, behind that. So, you know, made it through to the next round of that competition, knocked out of the Carabao Cup after coming back from the World Cup, which we saw, obviously, France versus Argentina. Ibu coming on in that game, representative of Liverpool. Overall, for Liverpool players during the World Cup, we didn't have a lot. I think we only had about 7 players there. I wouldn't say it was a bar Ibu, who didn't really play. I mean, he didn't start the competition. He ended it, but wasn't really that good of a competition for Liverpool players, so to speak. You know, we then pick up the injury with Diaz, and, you know, and there's a lot of paper talk, you know, in regards to Liverpool. Again, all paper talk, so nothing confirmed or anything like that. You know, we're looking at midfielders, and then we sign in, you know, Cody Gakpo, you know, who's going to be coming in on the 1st of January, who's a former PSV Eindhoven player, Dutch forward, played at the World Cup, played pretty good for Holland at the World Cup. Showed everybody what he can kind of do, where he can kind of play. He's had a very good season for PSV this season already. So a bit of an intriguing one because, you know, I guess, you know, because of the injuries to Diaz and Diogo Jota and the length of those injuries, it just depends on which way you look at it. You know, Liverpool are quite reactionary. We are, in my opinion, we are very, very reactionary when it does come to the transfer market. As I said, Jordan Henderson gets injured, we bring in Arthur Melo, you know, and I feel like we only then do that purely because Jordan Henderson, you know, gets himself injured. If Jordan Henderson, you know, doesn't get himself injured, are we bringing in, you know, a midfielder? You know, it's something that we've needed for a very, very long time. And I just feel like that was then something that we needed. And I think everyone's in agreement that Liverpool really did need, you know, that midfielder. We didn't get one in. We ended up getting Arthur Melo in, who probably wasn't the signing that, you know, Jurgen Klopp wanted, but ultimately we got him in. And then we kind of do the same thing with, you know, Cody Gakpo. You know, Diaz gets injured and we find out, well, Diaz gets injured, comes back, gets injured again. He's out for a very long time. Jota's obviously still injured, you know, and then we're looking at it and we're thinking we're quite short now up front. You know, and now we're looking at it and we're thinking we need to get in an attacker. But it's that reactionary behaviour. You know, these are the kind of things, it's always reactionary. It's always, oh crap, this has just happened. We need to, you know, sort it out now. Whereas if we had pre-planned these kind of things and, you know, if we had kind of sorted out that kind of area potentially beforehand, you know, we shouldn't be worrying about injuries. We should have a Cody Gakpo, for example, already in the squad. You know, that shouldn't be something that we're going out to already sign and relying on players like Ben Doak, who's obviously a young player coming through, made his debut and things like that, and looks like an exciting prospect for, you know, coming out of the Liverpool. I don't want to say academy because he didn't actually come from Liverpool Academy, came from, I believe, Celtic. So, you know, we shouldn't be relying on that. But ultimately, we got in Cody Gakpo. Haven't seen him play yet for Liverpool, so it's going to be interesting to see how he then forms a partnership with both Salah, you know, Firmino when he comes back, and Darwin Núñez. And then, you know, we've got this, you know, plethora of, you know, attackers that we can then move into 2023, and then we can see how that kind of works out. I'm not really bogged down. I don't think there's a best front three. I think the only person guaranteed in that front three is Mo Salah. Then the other two it just depends on who we're playing against. But I like that because I was a little bit tired of, you know, the same front three continuously playing, meaning that teams eventually will start to understand how to play against that front three over time. It won't take them that long, you know. Clubs will figure that part out quite easily. And once they do, you know, it leaves you in a bit of a precarious position. But once you've got kind of a mix of players and stuff like that, I think it then allows you to, you know, move forward and move on. But, you know, we'll wait and see what Cody Gakpo's like. But heading into 2023, it's going to be crazy. You know, I don't even know now. I was going to say apparently we're up for sale, but I've then heard reports that we're not actually, and you know, John Henry doesn't really want to actually sell us. He just wants to get investors in to help with the, you know, in the financial side of things for like things like transfers. You know, we've heard Klopp again come out in recent weeks speaking about the, you know, in regards to Liverpool's business and how we do business in terms of having to sell to buy and all these kind of things. 2023, ultimately, I think for me, I don't really care how anything really gets done. I just want Liverpool to do what they need to do to get them back to the top, because whether people want to believe it or not, whether people just think it's a one season thing, whatever you think, the facts are, for me anyway, is that I look at it and I think to myself, there's a lot more teams at play now. When we were going hammer and tongs in Manchester City, there was just us and Manchester City. No one else was really that good enough. Maybe Chelsea, but no one else was really that good enough. No one else could really compete. Now, I believe that there are a good, Arsenal especially, they're the ones I'm really looking at. I think that's now a third team entered into the mix. Arsenal, Newcastle, you know, the money that they've got, the position that they are in the Premier League, you know, currently occupying a Champions League spot. If they were to obtain that, it's going to be scary hours for a lot of teams. So now I feel like because there's more teams in the mix now, we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we are able to be in a position to at least try out, to at least do our best. We cannot go into next season. Like, I really don't want to, you know, go into the 2023-24 season, you know, and it's still a question of we haven't got enough or we haven't got the right quality and things. I don't want to do that. I want to go into the season knowing that we've got everything that we possibly need. It's then down to the team and the players. If they can't then do it, then it's a question of maybe you got to get rid of the manager and all these other kind of things. But that's fine because you've done everything that you possibly could do. And then it then becomes a case of, oh, well, if so-and-so does get injured and, you know, all these other external excuses that we use at this current moment in time, they're not then seen as excuses. At the moment, to me, they're just all excuses. And until that changes, you know, it's not going to be fun, you know, at next season, but also 2023 just as a whole, you know, it could be a very, very, I think it's a pivotal year for Liverpool, 2023. I think it's a very pivotal year. First game of the year is against Brentford away. It's not an easy game. You know, Liverpool's next 6 games are not easy games. I think we've got Brighton in there, Everton in there, Newcastle in there, you know, so not easy games that we've got to face over the next coming few weeks and months. So, and then obviously we've got Real Madrid, you know, in the Champions League. So, you know, if we're not prepared for that game, we will lose that game and we will go out the Champions League. And then all of a sudden the season doesn't really look that great anymore. So I think 2023 is going to be a pivotal year. Liverpool definitely are in urgent need of a refresh. That's the kind of, for me, that's the kind of motto for next season is a refresh. And just in 2023 in general, it is a refresh. Once we get that refresh, I do believe that then Liverpool will be able to get themselves at least back to the level that they were before. And then it then depends on, again, those fine few margins. And then, you know, we'll wait and see. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It is definitely going to be interesting. My player of the year for 2022, I'm going to give it to Alisson. I feel like he's been the most consistent player of 2022. I haven't really seen many dips. He's had a few games here and there where he's underperformed. But as a whole, I think he's been probably the most consistent player in my personal opinion. So I would give him my 2022 player of the year. Moment of the year. Moment of the year, I would say. I would probably say that. Maybe I'm not remembering all of them, but it would probably be that game against Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-final. That was one of the better games that we probably the best game that we had of last the 2022 calendar year. I think for me that was such a really, really good game, and I thought finally we're seeing something, you know, with Liverpool. You know, everything was just fantastic in the way that we kind of did everything. I know everyone's probably thinking, oh, why not pick, you know, the trophies? But for me, those trophies just didn't really mean that much to me. You know, they were kind of like consolation prizes, more than anything. It was like, okay, you know, you couldn't win the big one, so we'll give you these two, kind of thing. It was that, you know, even though we tried really hard, ultimately you didn't win it, you know, and that is the most important thing. You know, it doesn't matter about the ride. You know, do you care more about the journey or the destination? I care about the destination. I care about what we do once we're actually there. And, you know, ultimately we didn't win, you know, those top competitions. So for me, yeah, I think that moment was probably that. Any other awards I kind of want to give out? Not really many other awards, to be honest. I would maybe ones to look out for next year. Bajcetic looks like he looks decent. He looks decent. He looks like a player. He's definitely showing a bit of promise. So definitely one to look out for. Ben Doak, another one. But with Ben Doak, I just think it's going to be a case of, I don't think he's going to get enough minutes to be able to showcase exactly what he's all about. So it then just kind of depends on, you know, whether he's able to kind of get that. But if he does, then yeah. If not, then, you know, we shall wait and see. But yeah, that is my 2022 Liverpool wrap up. Guys, please make sure that you're liking. Please make sure that you're subscribing. We'll be back 2023. Hopefully it's just a better year. Hopefully, I just feel like with Liverpool right now, it's all bad vibes at the moment with everything that's going on. Hopefully we get in the midfielders that we need. I don't care who it is. With Bellingham, great. Just a quick one on Jude Bellingham. I think he's a really good player. Don't think he's worth the price that has been quoted for him. Anything over 100, I think anything over 80, but anything over 100, I feel that money could be well spent in other areas, or in the midfield area mainly, but also just as a whole. We know how Liverpool board are currently, so we do need to kind of worry about that. Will that completely, you know, take up all of our budget, and then meaning that we can't sign anyone else, and then we're completely, you know, kind of fucked in that kind of sense? Because if so, then is it really worth it? I don't think so. Jude Bellingham doesn't come in here and all of a sudden Liverpool's midfield turns into this prime midfield because we've got Jude Bellingham in there. We definitely need a lot more midfielders heading into next season. Or just heading into 2023, but just next season as in general. I think that I wouldn't mind having a small number of midfielders as long as they're reliable and quality. Once you've got that, it doesn't matter. We've got like 9, 10, 11 midfielders now, and they're either not good enough, declining, injury prone, unreliable. You know, it's not good enough. And that's about 6, 7 of them. You know, it's not good enough. You know, we need, if it does have to be a smaller number, we know that Klopp likes working with a smaller squad. Perfect. I don't mind having 6. And then, you know, leaving the other spots for all the youngsters like your Bajcetic, your Mortons, who's going to come back from loan and things like that. I don't mind that. You know, I really don't mind that. But, you know, Jude Bellingham, I just don't want there to be the same Darwin Núñez situation of having the world on your shoulders and everyone looking at you, you know, to change things and to do things. And when the reality is, 1, you're not that type of guy. And 2, at the same time, it shouldn't be on you. They should be coming as a collective. So, yeah, that's kind of like my verdict on Jude Bellingham. If there was probably one player I would say to look out for in the first team, I would say Mo Salah. I would say watch what his role is going to be like over the next, you know, few months. I think we might see a change. I don't know what it is, but I just have this inkling that we might see a bit of a change in his role in the team. So, you know, wait and see on that. And on that note, guys, I'm gonna head out. So please, just as we head out, have a happy New Year to everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas, for those who celebrate it. And for those who don't, I just hope you had a joyous 2022. I'd like to thank everybody for watching all my videos, my rants, my moaning, my tweets, and all these kind of things. I have arguments with everyone every single day. It's just the way it is. You guys know how passionate I am about Liverpool Football Club. I just want us to do the best. So I will keep on at it, whether that means I've upset a few people. I haven't meant to upset anybody, you know, purposely, but, you know, my love of Liverpool, you know, overrides quite a lot of things, you know, in my life in a general sense. So, of course, it might come across that way, but please don't take offense to anything that I've said personally. And if you have, please DM me, man, message me, let me know. Sometimes I got to be G-checked, you know, so, of course, you know, sometimes it's just the way it is. But hope everyone has a happy new year. We head into 2023. Hope everyone gets the blessings. I hope everyone, you know, kind of achieves all the goals and targets that they set themselves over the next 12 months. And yeah, I'll be back with a Brentford post-match review, hopefully looking at a win, but we will wait and see. I'm G and I am